What I want to do very much in about 25-30 minutes is provide a road or a path for everyone here to be able to go from theoretically and from the architecture side what was constructed and how do you put it into action so that when we get to that 2 p.m. work session, you know the context, the market, you know, who wants a solution, what are you building, why do you all care, right? So I'm basically setting the stage in terms of practically, what does this mean? So that when you get to the code, you've got an idea, at least really quickly, A to Z, of what is the customer requirement. And that's what I'm going to try and get to. Very quickly, what I'd love to do is start with the why, just for myself, Canadian. I was originally a computer engineer in the AI space, but I did it in the Canadian military, served for about 15 years, and my background was crypto, electronic warfare, all of that. It's all the same building blocks, we're just using it in a totally different context. And served all over the world, and I left, and then started working in tech and finance and consulting with McKinsey for about 5-6 years. And this was right in 2008, 2009. And everyone remembers that's when the big MBS blow-up happened. And when I went to that particular path, I spent my first year in the wreckage of Wall Street with all the investment banks and insurance companies. And that was my introduction to the private sector. And I kind of came out of that. It was amazing education. This is broken. We can do better than this. So the next 4 or 5 years of consulting was kind of like school, and then left and started building things. But that's a little bit about me and just why I kind of went there. So what you're seeing here is, this is after about a year of us working together, and it's just a little rented room that we actually got kicked out of right at the end. And there's Dan Tolliver, 2 feet off on the side. Adam is there, and this is right at the moment before the very first transaction on the Toda protocol took place, where you had 2 nodes and a file being sent from one to the next with the full settlement happening. And there is a video of that, which if you want to ambush me later, I can pull up and show you because it's kind of cool. So, and what it basically grew into kind of organically over a period of 18 months was now this growing community of, at least even just on the TodaQ end, of a few hundred, and many people on the government, private sector, investment, regulatory, and building side, particularly within those countries I talked about yesterday. And it happened because everyone threw their weight in and more people started shoveling, like this is where we are. And then that turned into a pipeline of projects of which I'm showing about half here. Don't worry, I'm trying to read through it. If you want to come after and get the details. This is just getting a little more into the meat of why I showed up yesterday and said, hey, we need help. These projects are in a whole bunch of countries across a whole bunch of sectors. And the scale of those leads, it's sometimes it's business to business supply chain applications, where we're talking about millions of assets, or it's on the front end, we're sharing economies or consumer solutions where we're dealing with millions of customers. So that's the why. And now we're going to very quickly start building some functional building blocks of what does this all mean. So what you're seeing here is a kind of a functional tiny use case. And what happened here, this was the first commercial transaction that happened. And the team had busy being coding for a while and taking that first file transaction, building it out to our first working app, kind of on the phone. And we said, all right, we need a commercial application. And you need something simple. I think with Bitcoin, it was a couple of pizzas. So our pizza moment was actually with manicures. So there was, on Toronto, there's a street called, and there's a bunch of shops there, and there's a manicure pedicure shop. So April, on Mother's Day, I was on a plane, an hour out of Seoul, and a whole bunch of people were going in to get manicure pedicures, and it was getting paid on Toda, actually using Toda notes. And I paid from my phone, settled it in 30 seconds with 0 fees, down to the shop. And there's a bunch of photos and kind of everything around that, so that was my Mother's Day gift. And the next part was all the engineers got manicure pedicures too, so that was we got to try something different. That was kind of cool. I don't know if they continued the habit. I unfortunately fell off the wagon, but it was still a fantastic moment. So what's happening here, and why do we care? So, like Tufi was describing, and what you'll see further in the work session is that most of the work is done by the counterparties in the transactions, right? And they pack everything up, and the only thing that is being sent back and forth is files. That file could be money, and it's literally like digital cash. The file says, hey, I'm $1, I'm a Toda node, or I'm a loyalty point, it can be anything you want. And it carries its own ledger and its own proof of ownership history. So you can have trillions of files, and like library books, they all fly around between accounts. So if I have a service or a good on one side and money on the other, that's all you're sending. And you don't need an underlying token to incentivize these nodes or mobile devices or anything else to say, please achieve consensus on this or get the transaction settled. So once that money or value has changed hands, the new owner is then able to show it to anyone on Earth and have that counterparty efficiently validate it and confirm that it's legit and that that person is the actual owner. And that's what we ended up doing. So what does that mean in business terms? Well, the global transaction fee industry is around $2.25 trillion in aggregate size. So what effectively was just said is you don't need that. And obviously that will take years and perhaps decades to happen, but we are at the moment where you don't need it. So one of the interesting parts is in terms of what is TodaQ as Bank of the Future, we will never charge transaction fees. And we're not saying we will never charge transaction fees because we're going to get the revenue from somewhere else, or we're going to take data and then resell it to another market, or we're charging the merchants but making it free for the consumer. There's no charge. We will never charge transaction fees because we don't need to, because there is no cost base. And that is the typical cycle of technology that happens. Communication got commoditized and became cheap. And for the most basic forms of communication, everyone has it, and will probably not agree to pay for it. And now that steamroller of efficiency is hitting the settlement of value as the next thing to happen. But if you thought about what this means, if there's no balance sheet and there's no replicated ledger that you've got miners or other maintaining, and you're actually sending someone a thing that they own, well, that's really cool. It's very different. But now there's a challenge. And the challenge is, in this particular case, how do you make change? Which sounds kind of funny. If I send a bill, a digital bill that says, I'm in US dollars, series X of Y, produced by the Fed, was owned by this bank, and then by Chantal, and then it went to James or to Adam, and they have it. And then they say, fine, I've got $1, I'm going to buy an apple. And the apple is worth 50 cents. How do you get change? You're not moving digits up and down or adding and subtracting on a ledger. And in a real case, if you had a physical bill, you wouldn't say, well, I'm going to rip the thing in half. That doesn't work. So then what ended up happening is the question went to sort of Dan and Tufi and the team, which resulted in many months of work to try and figure out something that in the old world you think is trivial. Because what you need to do is have the ability to have files fractionate in order to generate change. So the dollar becomes 10 10-cent files. And each 10-cent file carries all the characteristics and provenance of the parent of where it came from. And that led to, at least for me personally, you've got to have fun while you're working like that. So I always try and find moments with Dan, where's Dan? He might be upstairs. Where if you can get Dan to do this, I really think you get a point. If you can get him to start doodling in a little sketchbook, you get 3 points. And this was a 3-pointer. And it kept him and the team busy for another year and a half, trying to figure out that problem. What ended up happening next was not something that I had originally thought about. So in how TodaQ and all these solutions have grown is because we constantly went to the real economy side of the market, business owners, etc., who kept hitting us and saying, we don't like this, we like that, that's valuable, can you do this, right? And I do believe, it doesn't matter how smart you are, the market's smarter than you. When I was in the Army, there was a saying, the map is right, the compass is right, you are wrong. And my business version of that is the market is smarter than me, at least. So I just listened to it and let it tell me what to do. So what happened is, once we produced that, everyone showed up from the pharma and agriculture and clean tech side of things, every industry, and they said, wait, a file can be anything. And we're like, yeah. And you can fractionate, you can do that. Yep. And you can do it efficiently with immutable trust and security. Yep. So they brought their engineers and dug in to confirm, is this legit? Right. And they said, well, we can do all of our supply chains, all of our goods, the food, the seed to sale, the drugs that are produced in the factories and go elsewhere. Every single resource, commodity, and good on Earth that starts flying around the world can be put on that. We understand that you are first solving the change issue, but this is actually something else. And I thought about it and said, yeah, we can do that. And that is why you care on the fractionation of files or packets or things like that. And then the final one is the word atomic swap has been used in the blockchain world quite a bit, and typically means you are moving assets from one blockchain system to another, right? And Toda is different. It's kind of like providing the road, right? It's not like a blockchain, it's just a car that you put on top. So what does an atomic swap transaction mean in Toda?